traditions. And he draws himself by saying, since it is written in Purana that it's Rahu and Ketu does it, it must be cut. So our brilliant thinkers, even though they knew that certain facts were scientific facts, they sometimes withdrew because of the power of tradition and culture. Puranas are still being revered, we know, composed sometime during 3rd AD to 6th AD. They are very powerful presentation of human thought, human unity. In a planetic style. So you have so many Puranas which have acquired the status of what you may call canonical knowledge. So you have some kind of a tension here between what you call canonical knowledge and what is scientific knowledge. It is not that only in India we witnessed it. It was there in Europe, it was there everywhere. When the society changes, there would be some spark. There will be some friction, some spark. And it happened. Galileo had to recount. Many others they faced. Darwinism probably is still a hypothesis for Vatican. It's not considered as a truth by many faithful Bible followers. So it happens. But the real beauty is that our scientists, our forefathers, our thinkers, they continue to put forward their views. And we had very distinct scientific traditions in our philosophy. For example, Sankhya and Vaisheshika. In Buddhism also, very, very powerfully expressed. And if this is not scientific temper, what else scientific temper is? You don't have to look into very recent past to talk about scientific temper. It has been there for ages. Since we are Homo sapiens, the moment we grew as Homo sapiens, reason was there. Emphasis on reason was there. Faith, of course, existed. Even blind faith today we have. It has always been there. But rationality was also a very important component of human thought and human progress. This is what makes scientific journey. This is what makes the journey of science, the history of science, very, very fascinating. And we need to learn from it. You don't have to do a lot of chest thumping to claim that you had everything. It was there. And, it was recognized by others also. In 10th century, a very interesting text in Arabic was written called by a scholar from the then Andalus, called Andalus, Spain. Tabqate al-Ulum. There, the author, his name was Andalusi, refers to India as a fountainhead of knowledge. He even adds that, these Indians, they are dark in complexion, but they are very bright. They're brighter than the white ones. A century later, Al-Biruni visits India. He spends 2-3 years. He studies Sanskrit. He is familiar with our mathematical tradition, with our astronomical tradition. He doesn't agree with Brahmagupta. He says where Barahamir goes wrong. And very critically, and at the same time, like a friend, sympathetic also, looks at Indian scientific tradition in his Kitab al-Hind. You may have seen it. Alberni is very important, famous. And he says that, here the ratnas, the gems are mixed with cow dung. You have to shift. You have to winnow the grain from the chaff. Ratnas are there. Gems are there. They're still there. But then we have lots of cobwebs at the same time. We need to distinguish. We need to separate. And of course, go for the gems. Not everybody finds gems, If you take a dip in the ocean, it's not that you will get pearl all the time. You get pebbles mostly. But even if one gets one or two pearl, justifies his life, his century, his existence, his generation. Isn't it? We had people, even in medieval time, which is considered as, unfortunately, as dark or whatever it is, politically difficult and so forth, I would consider a lot of work was done. And there was a lot of intermingling. There was something called Islamic astronomy. In terms of medicine, our Vedyas and Hakims, they learned from each other. So we had the Nadi Pariksha. Mutra Pariksha comes from Unani medicine. Many things happen. And you have numerous examples, numerous texts being written. Some of the Persian words entered Sanskrit and Sanskrit words entered Persian language. So you have a text in 18th century called Hikmat Prakasha. That shows that collaboration was going on. It was there. We need to learn from that. And we need to, however, we missed certain things. Had we not missed it, probably we would have been an independent nation for a long time. We missed certain things because we couldn't match for some reason or other. And history is not a history of apology, no. It happened. It had to happen. It lay in the logic of history that certain things like scientific revolution took place in Western Europe or industrial revolution took place in that part of the world. It could have happened here also. But what we had was a Bhakti movement. Right from 9th century, Adi Shankara, down till today it's going on, I don't have to tell you what Bhakti is. I have no disputes with it. No, absolutely nothing. But science is science. Even science can be Bhakti theek nahi. Don't be blindfolded by what science says. No. Scientism would be equally bad. Equally bad. So here we had a huge tradition. Recently had the of Ramanujacharya, many others coming up, whatever. So many temples, so many things. But in the process, we missed the significance of glass. We didn't make this. And it is this glass technology which gave us microscope. Today we all work on microscope. It is this glass technology which gave us telescope. It is this glass technology, extension of that, which today you find in satellites, and how my talk is being heard all around the country, all over the world probably. This revolution in telecommunication is not because of a marble chip or a stone chip. It's another kind of chip. And a society which played with stone and marble had to pay the price. Taj Mahal was not enough. Taj Mahal is beautiful, no doubt about it. But Taj Mahal doesn't make you, within quote, modern. Doesn't empower ordinary people. It's a great artifact. It's a great handicraft. Beauty to aesthetics. But it doesn't empower ordinary people, which a mobile does. Ordinary people. That's a huge difference. The result was the society which played with stones and marbles, with temples, Maqbaras, Taj Mahal, etc., went down in 18th century. A nation, small seafaring nations like the Dutch, the Dane, the Portuguese, the Spaniards, they come over through a new route, sea route. They didn't come from Khyber. From the sea route, captured us. Not only us, 80% of the world was colonized. This colonization would not have been possible without certain scientific advances like gunpowder, compass, printing press, and so forth, paper. All this made it possible. It all came from China. But the Chinese mandarins, they don't know the Mandarin, they didn't realize its significance. They were too bureaucratic. When it went to Europe, it created a renaissance. In India, our own Brahminical community, the powerful priestly class, was too busy with social reform, with bhakti and so forth. The problem was that most of us became otherworldly. Paralok, Ihlok said life before death was somehow discounted. It was life after death which becomes powerful. This is what you find in Holy Quran, and everywhere. So Indo-Islamic society, in that sense, had a different trajectory altogether. Look at even late 17th century, early 18th century, we had a brilliant scholar prince called Raja Jai Singh. In Delhi, you have his Jantar Mantar, lays the foundation of a modern city. He had scientific temper. He knew what science was, but unfortunately, he was not aware of Copernican revolution, which had taken place a century before. He was not aware of Galileo. He remained rooted in Indo-Islamic astronomical tradition of Jis, Panchang. Century, the great Ulugh Beg astronomer who had produced Jiz-e Ulugh Khani. Almost similar Jiz was prepared under his. Jai Singh was so ahead of his time, he had created a virtually school of astronomers in Jaipur. He invited astronomers from different parts, Vidyadhar, Jagannath Samrat, many others. But no royal school of royal institution could emerge of astronomy. While in London, you have a Royal Society, Fellowship of the Royal Society is considered the highest scientific recognition, probably more than a Nobel Prize. We couldn't develop that. It is the British who 1784 established the Asiatic Society in Kolkata for, of course, their own purposes. But look at the logo of the Asiatic Society. People do not look at it. It's very significant. William Jones at that time said that the scope of the Asiatic Society would be to cover anything that occurs in nature and anything that is performed by humans, by man. Anything that occurs in nature means right from solar flame to the tiny microbe in the ocean bed. Everything. And whatever is performed by humans. We perform so many things. Art, aesthetics, science, society, many things. Economy, all this is part of our human activity. This comes under that canopy of Asiatic society. It's still existing, but not, of course, in its former glory, which we. However, the beginning was made much late. And that is why this period is considered as the beginning of modern times in India, modernity in India. You have Raja Ram Mohan Roy, who talked about why modern science and literature should be taught to the Indians. We had our traditions, no doubt about it, but some of them in 19th century we started forgetting. And there emerged what you may call a kind of different science, you may call it colonial science. Science which was made to serve the colonial purposes. After all, colonialism was no philanthropy. What is wrong in it? Colonialism is a machine of war. Colonialism was domination. When A tells B that you nothing about yourself, I know you better than you know yourself, and I give you better knowledge. So this is what Macaulay said. So introduced English. This is what the missionary said. My God is superior to your God. My knowledge is superior to. Unless this was done, how could they establish their power? That's how they established their power. It lay in the forces of history. I don't mind it. Quite fine, they did it. But our people also reacted. They were not dumb and deaf. They put up their own show. Ram Mohan Roy comes up. He comes out with his own Brahmo Samaj, which is a synthetic, synthesis of different kinds of knowledge systems. Later, Dayanand Saraswati, Vivekananda, probably the most modern epitome of modernity you find in him. Their reason, religion, both come together in Vivekananda. Many such people were there. Mahendralal Sarkar, who established the Indian Association for Cultivation of Science in 1876. And I consider the establishment of the Indian Association for Cultivation of Science in Kolkata no less significant, as significant as the establishment of Indian National Congress 9 years later, in 1885. It was a cultural response. We wanted to do good science, wanted to come with our own identity, scientific identity, and we did succeed. Within 30 Praful Chand Ray, later you have Meghnad Saha, Satyen, huge names. They are still inspiring us. They are like comets. They came. I wish those comets come back again. We need more such people. In fact, I'm very often asked that colonial India produced such stars. In independent India, we don't find them. Why? I'm at a loss to explain. Maybe because science has undergone such change. The nature of science, the culture of science has undergone such a drastic change that today it is not possible to have one Jagdish Chandra Basu who worked on his own little machine in his own way, who manufactured. Things have changed. However, this should not be taken as an enemy. I believe that for some reason, good or bad, our science activities have become little bureaucratized. I'm trying to put it very mildly, humbly. It is scientocracy which has taken over us. And it is as bad as we find in bureaucracy. Similarly, technology has overtaken us. Technology and science are two sides of the same coin. But we should not be obsessed with technology all the time, sir. One rocket here, another rocket there has significance for communication purposes, for strategic, summary purposes. Fine, I'm happy with that. But we need cutting edge fundamental knowledge at the same time. This little RNA virus has shown us how fragile our society and economy had been. We lost so many people. We could have prevented it. We did prevent it gradually with the coming of the vaccines. We produced those vaccines. There's no doubt about it. We were capable. But we don't have to lower our guard. Basic science, my final argument, and I stop here, would be that basic science is no less significant, no less important than applied science or science for strategic purposes. We need to try to make a balance between the two. And basic science cannot be done in few years. It takes decades and centuries. It will be very difficult to have another Satyen Bose. As I told you, they came like comets. comets don't return easily. They don't return easily. हजारों बरस नरगिस अपनी बेनूरी पे रोती है, तब कहीं जाकर होता है चमन में दीदावर पैदा। और वो दीदावर पैदा करने के लिए we need scientific understanding at a social level, at a larger socio-cultural level. Only government of India or bureaucracy will not be able to do it. You can invite 2-3 Nobel laureates every Indian Science Congress, so what? We don't have our own. Till now, 80 years ago, only C.V. Raman remains. Others have got it, but they got other passport. They are of Indian origin. I'm very proud of them. Fine. But something, the plant has to sprout here in my soil, here itself. We have to nurture it. We have to nurse it. How we will do? Only with a good historical and sociological understanding, and with the right kind of policies which would encourage research, which would encourage long time, curiosity-oriented research, not profit-oriented research, not immediate goals. Look for long-term goals. Invest in curiosity. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Professor Deepak. Thank you very much. We'll take a few questions. Before we go for questions, we have about 10 minutes time. Just a quick review what Professor Deepak said. He started with that history need not be apologetic. So we need to respect history, and there has to be a good understanding of historical and societal events in order to develop our path towards the future. And he also talked about historical scientific events. He talked about scientists, those who were proud of. He said those are the comets, and many more comets to come in next 25 years, what we are celebrating 100 years of our independence. He talked about there are fellow of Royal Society in London, and vis-a-vis parallelly we had our own historical events which suggest, especially on astronomy and mathematics, we had the opportunity to have come up with such kind of institutes which we should have been proud of. Nevertheless, we can still go ahead with taking few questions now. Is there any questions here? Take the mic. Anybody? From the Zoom link, anybody would help me to get some question? No? Okay. Any question? Yeah, please.
Sir, as you mentioned, India was at its peak once in the science and technology, and then the Bhakti movement came, and it all went in a down slope. So what happened all of a sudden that a civilization that was at the apex of scientific knowledge take a downtrend?
Unfortunately,
Yes.
Hello, sir. Connecting with this question, where did we fail, or what happened that we lost the ground, and what needs more to be done to become again go to the peak of the pinnacle of the science and technology in next 25 years, sir?
it is possible. Well, I'm not talking about pinnacle. I do not buy this theory of becoming Vishwaguru. We become only good students, that would satisfy me. Only good students can become good gurus. पहले तो स्टूडेंट अच्छे बनाओ, फिर देखेंगे हम, है ना? ऐसे करने से नहीं होगा. And I'm not in favor of guruda. Let us all be learners, disciples first. We need good disciples, good learners. And learning is all through. I have been a student of history all through my life. I never thought that I'm still learning. Till my breath, I hope I'll continue my studentship. Now, what went wrong, it is very difficult to say. But Prafullah Chandra Ray, in his History of Hindu Chemistry, written a century and 10 years ago, he said that it was because of our social division that it happened. Because, the people who worked with their fingers, the cookers, the potters, the carpenters, people who worked with their fingers, they were pushed to the margins of the society, the village, they were. And they worked on their own without knowing the theory. For example, they created a furnace to smelt iron. But nobody was there to tell them how to control the fire, to what extent to raise the temperature, and so forth, how to improve the quality of steel. We couldn't have a Bessemer here who could produce that Bessemer steel. Our people tried their very best, and we have. While what happened, the people who were very smart and brilliant, they remained confined to the Garbhagriha of the society. And the Garbhagriha, the main place, as you go to our temples, you will see the Garbhagriha. There is no light. Mostly the doors and the windows are closed because it's a warm country. We want to keep the sun out. Ek diya niche jalta hai. And mostly, to keep cool our deities, we do this. The result is, if the Garbhagriha is dark, there would be no coordination between head and the mind. It was divided in the society. Purush Sukta says that this belongs to someone, this belongs to someone, this. So we have this Varna division, which served its own purpose. Of course, it is important from the point of view of division of labor, but it was carried too far by 8th, 9th century, especially after Manu Samhita, carried too far. Then Islam comes. Islam is also getting Hinduized here. Don't think that's so any different. They also have their own castle. They didn't bring new knowledge, which Islam had in the 8th, 9th, 10th century, Mustalite period. Mughal India couldn't produce an Ibn Sina, Al-Razi, Ibn Haytham. Ibn Haytham, optics man. He raises it to a level from where Newton was possible. There is a difference of 5th century between Haytham and Newton, but he raises it to that level. He's one of the first to say that we see because light comes to us. Earlier, the Greeks believed that eyes emit light. First. Optics, master. But my own Turkish India or Mughal India couldn't produce such people. My Islam, which we received, is basically Ghazali's Islam of 11th century, which was a conservative Islam, which attributed everything to Allah, which didn't talk about nature. Nature is there, of course, sun, moon, everything, subhanallah. And no further probing. The Sanatanis, they also put it everything to Bhagwan karta hai ji, fatalism. Aaj bhi chal raha. And another thing which we did, we put more emphasis on what is called mati, wisdom. Mati and yukti mein fark hai. We should have put more emphasis on yukti, less on mati. Third, we put little, we could have been, the difference between para and apara. Ihlok, parlok, laukik, alaukik. We were too much obsessed with alaukik. We should have been little grounded in reality. Look for the diseases. Look, in India, we have all kinds of disease. We have been a pathological reservoir for centuries and thousands of years. But who found that malaria vector? Ronald Ross. There are so many insects, so many varieties, even of mosquito. Out of that, what a process, what a difficult process must have been for Ronald Ross. So I have gone through his memoirs and papers, you see. Similarly, Koch, the cholera. In physics, you have several names you can always roll out. Tell me in modern times any 5 medical names I asked you. who contributed to medical knowledge. Today, 5 नाम मुश्किल होंगे आपको. Physics में you can even now you can say 10 names. Astronomy field. Even though India is a pathological reservoir. Why? We are vaccine makers. But the fundamental basic science, you ask ICMR. So anyway, I don't want to provoke you further.
Thank you, Professor Deepak Kumar. He never, fails to excite us with his, perspective of historical scientific events and scientists. Thank you, sir. Thank you for this lecture. And may I invite Kinkini ji to come on stage and felicitate Professor Kumar with a token of honor, a small memento, please. Yeah, please come. It's here. Thank you, sir. Start YouTube. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Yeah, sir, please.